All right, skill-based work, working my hinge because everybody likes a solid hinge and we need to work on making sure you know how to break it apart to fix any problems with it because we use it in virtually every workout every day. We need to learn to hinge better. Number one, control your hinge by first understanding your stack. So that's where oftentimes we'll take a dowel, broomstick, stick bug, whatever you got, put it right down the length of your spine. If you already have a bit of kyphosis rounding to the back, it's okay if we just do 2 points right now. But if you don't, then use those 3 points. So again, I'm here. I can always take that bottom hand, place it this way too, if it's uncomfortable for my shoulder. Number two, I got my feet fairly close together initially. Doesn't have to be there, but eventually we'll work on different stances. And then holding those 3 points of contact, I'm working on pushing my hips backwards first, and then hinging, bowing like I'm folding up my hip joint as I come down. Notice I'm maintaining those 3 points of contact and then driving all the way back up. There's a lot of things going on here. Ideally, if you're struggling with this right away, pop your shoes off, because if your shoe has any sort of heel lift on it, it's going to make your hinge a bit less hingy, and we want it to be really hingy. All right, so same idea. Now my heels are in contact with the ground. I can feel my heel blowing a lot better. I'm not being kicked forward by my shoe. And so now I can slide my hip back oh so much easier as I go down into my hinge and then driving up. Similar to your walkouts, for keeping that idea of this pack, this brace the whole time. I'm not breaking. What a lot of people do is one of two things. They like to break into extension. So they get here and then they have this really excessive extension in the low back, which now I'm just jamming that backside of my vertebrae together and they're not too happy. Number two, I go the opposite, which is boom into the dreaded kind of melting, or we call pooping chihuahua position with all our athletes, because it gives a good visual of what not to do either. So the idea, I want to feel shoulders down, rib cage, pelvis stacked, and then slide my hips back, my toes, all of them are in full contact with the ground, driving back up. I can use the wall. I can measure a foot length away from the wall, set my feet, and then get my hips to tap the wall as I hinge back, making sure I'm not losing that stack as I go through that. The reason we like to use like a lot of band prep work when we're doing hinges is to help engage your lats. Your lats are a really good stabilizer for that posterior side. So you probably often heard me talk about rotating, like trying to bend the bar for using a straight bar, or if you're using your trap bar handles, you want to kind of rotate out on those handles just to get the lats to be a bit engaged as you go into that hinge action. The importance of that hinge action is we utilize it in a bunch of different movements as a static hold position. So for instance, a lot of people struggle when they go into, say, your split row. We have the one leg back. Everybody tends to do one of two things. One, they're either flexing this upper back a bunch to get in position. So now you can see my low back is completely flattened out. My hips are kind of tucked under, which would be me standing like this. Does not look very good, right? Or number two, the opposite, where I'm just in this big kind of peacock position or you know, full rooster going on. And now I'm just hammering my low back a bunch. So again, we need to control, understand where the happy medium is with that. So here we work that brace, again, a little bit of tension, a little bit of tension. Now I can get into my position. Now that I can hold my position, now as I execute, say, my row or my press, whatever it is, I'm able to hold my spinal position so I'm not driving force in just one area. So that's the importance of, again, can I get my basic fundamental movement skill down first before I start changing my positions with it? And that's where people struggle, because we don't get the fundamentals down really well. So work on, I know it's not super sexy and fun to work on these boring movements, but the more you execute, the more you get down the correct patterning, then it just layers on with all the complex movements that we do, that you're not going to be sacrificing position just to work on that next movement pattern. And that way you get what we want out of that next movement pattern and not get into trouble heating up maybe our low back and or our knees. And then we can really bias through the hips. So work that hinge action, work on holding tension through your midsection as you press back. You can even do isometrics in these end ranges, so you can feel like, oh, do I feel my low back kicking in here? Or can I really get into my hip and hold a solid position? And practice where you can maintain all of that without breaking into kind of the secondary assisters in each one of those movements. So have fun with it, play around with the hinge, and then once you get the basis, then start playing around with changing your stance up and maybe using another implement to then add a complexity to your movement. So have fun with the skill set of owning your hinge.